So welcome to this time of appreciation for this teaching from Patrul Rinpoche. And I do always feel like a disclaimer is in order as we begin. Dzogchen is a very, very advanced and specialized and to some degree even very well guarded teaching. And there are living Tibetan Rinpoches who teach on this meditation. And when they do, there's many, many preliminaries even for them to give the teaching of this. And so I think it's just really important as I share about this, it's almost like I got inspired by a piece of music. I heard a piece of music. It was this teaching of Patrul Rinpoche embodied and expressed by Samaneri JSR. And I'm very often sharing the links to that so that you can go and experience it for yourself. And just like that is just available for people to listen to and be evoked in many, many ways, inspired in many, many ways. What I'm offering here is how, especially with my over 10 years now background in Taoist approaches and Tai Chi, and in my own personal need to find practices that didn't exacerbate my already hyper strong tendency to try and to try too hard and to really just torture myself with pretty much any practice. And so it's that lived experience combined with just the listening, almost like a piece of music that couldn't begin to know the mind of the composer, but I can share what it evokes in me. And what we've been doing in this series so far, or we could say what we've not been doing, the not doing that we've been exploring in the series so far, is how do we abide? How do we simply settle into experience without altering it in any way? And as Patrul Rinpoche often says in his self-liberating meditation, and that is it. It sounds so simple. And clearly, since according to these teachings, if we understood it, got it, could live it, we would become immediately enlightened. So probably it's not so easy in a way after all. But maybe there is a way that we can get familiar with in a very concrete and direct, immediate, experiential way with what it's like to recognize something as just the way it is, the way of nature, the flow of nature. And as we were really kind of getting into last time, that apparent paradox of not altering it in any way, and yet recognizing it for what it is. And so without trying to shift our experience shifts in a way. And for the last 2 times, we've done that with the sense of literally the ground beneath our body, the ground beneath our feet, sources of support, physical, immediate, tangible support that we can both just physically and metaphorically simply settle into. And I was even looking up the Tibetan, and it does have that sense of the word sit. So it's even the word that you would, tell school children to sit down. So it has that sense of sit down. And of course it has much, much fuller, broader meaning, deeper meaning, especially when it gets applied to mind, which we're not beginning to touch that yet. We're just seeing what it'd be like to experience not trying to alter, improve, cultivate, concentrate, block out, adjust anything, but to simply settle directly into how nature is already flowing. As my Tai Chi teacher likes to say, it's already laid down reality. We practice laying down the burden. We practice simply settling into support. But each of us already is 100% supported by the earth. It's really not up to us. And so in today's session, I think in all the sessions to come, we will tap into that, the felt experience of what it's like to lay down into laid down reality. Where we can concretely and experientially have that experience of what it's like to not alter our experience, but to settle directly into what is. And that what is, no matter what, no matter how much tension or holding I have in my body, is already laid down reality. It's just harder to feel when I'm all like this. And then as we began to hint at the end of last session, there's this way that yes, we can get that sense of what it's like to lay down to the physical support of the ground. It's always there, just the way it is. And then we could also kind of just take that sense of ground as like the Tao, as just like the way of nature, the way nature is always already. And see what it's like to practice laying down into that. Simply settling into that way of nature without trying to alter it, manipulate it in any way. So today we will begin to see what that's like. What's it like to simply settle into that there is space? To simply settle into that there is the flow of change, and that the space and the flow of change doesn't need our tweaking, it doesn't need our adjusting. It's just the flow of nature, and we can simply settle into it. Maybe. We'll see. We'll see. And gradually we'll let our perception of this sense of the flow of nature, our own inner feel of it, begin to become finer and finer. And then we'll see where all that may take us. And so to begin, you're welcome to stay just seated, but there's nothing like fully just stretching out, laying down upon the ground to really let ourselves connect with that sense of this is a not doing. This is a letting go of trying. Since the flow of nature just doesn't need our trying, apparently. And so you're welcome to come all the way down if you have the space for it, that's comfortable for you. And always adjust and put a blanket underneath you, a bolster underneath your knees. Whatever helps you allow yourself to rest more fully. And maybe just letting the whole preamble just kind of sink to the earth or float away. Really not necessary to think we're doing any particular thing or anything particularly special with this practice. And maybe before we even begin more fully to turn inside and feel into our experience, it can be helpful in this case to start actually with understanding that whatever weight we're putting upon the earth, The earth is matching that. One 100%. As much downward force, there's just as much upward force. All along our back body, in that meeting place of body and ground. It's laid down reality. Before we feel it, before we release extra tension, before anything, it's just already the nature that it is. How might we allow ourselves to simply settle and abide right in the very nature of this mutual flow? There's nothing for us to do, to make happen, to create, to cultivate. And if I were to prompt, just simply settle directly into the support of the earth, into that way of mutual flow. And abide with that. Just notice how you respond. How do you simply settle? Where it's not a doing. And how do you continue to Just abide. With that flow of nature as that flow of nature. And I know this time I wasn't, giving all the other kinds of prompts. And that's just to give the quiet where you come to know what it is in your experience. There's a there's an experience of simply settling into the way something always is. The nature that's always so. And yet is always specifically and uniquely having its own expression. If we can get a taste of it, a gist of it, just lying upon the ground. And that does become a gist, an analogous template. This unfamiliar direction that's not a doing, an altering, an adjusting, trying, but a recognition and feeling and settling into the way it always is and is right now. And while we're lying here, just noticing the backs of your hands, or however your hands are resting on the ground. And noticing what it's like for your hands to simply settle into the support beneath. What's it that you stop doing when your hands simply settle? And it's not about answering that, just feeling that. Now we're going to gently and gradually transition back to sitting. Gradually finding your way back into sitting. And let your hands rest upon your lap, where the back of the hands are laying down to the lap, and the palms are open face. And for today's session, may find it helpful to start with eyes closed. Though can always come back to this and practice again with eyes open. And what is it like to sit down, to settle, literally, and to feel that you're settling into that way of nature, the way that the ground meets your weight with just as much support. Without us having to do anything. And now returning again to feeling the backs of the hands simply settle directly into support. And how there's not a doing more for that. There's no extra pressing down of the hand. And maybe now as well too, we can see how there's no extra downward focus needed for our hands to simply settle and for us to be that, experience that. So, an invitation to feel right into the midst of hands and lap meeting. And almost feel like you can feel it from the inside, from right there. The immediacy of experience right in that place without an observer at headquarters peering down and getting busier doing something. Just leaving the experience right where it is. Right at that meeting place, hands and lap. And abide there. And now beginning to feel the very tips of the thumbs on both hands. Sensitive tips of the thumbs that touch the air just beyond them. And now feeling the very tips of the pointer finger on both hands. That place where finger meets air, right at the tip. And feeling all 4 fingertips touching the air. Very gently, very slowly, moving the pointer finger and the thumb tips so that they point a little bit more towards each other. Until you're feeling there's some certain amount of distance, space in between those tips of your fingers, still touching the air. And just a simple, basic confirmation that we're feeling the distance, the space in between. See how you can make it a little bit wider. You feel it. You feel the space between getting wider. You feel that width of the space between. And then making it smaller. Making that space between slightly smaller. And if that's helpful, you can keep slightly making it wider and smaller for a bit through here as a way to stay in touch with the immediacy of we're feeling that space in between directly, immediately, not abstract at all. Or can just let the fingers come to rest. And either way, let's see what it might be like to simply rest in that space between our fingers. To simply settle directly into that experience of space as it is. You may like to feel almost like you can bathe in that sense of the space between your fingers. can bask in it. The feeling is so effortless. There's just a feeling of no need for an extra observer. Let the fingertips do the observing, and all of you can bask and bathe directly in that experience of space. And a nice thing about space is that it's a lot harder just to grasp it with our mind or try to alter it or try to do anything particular with it. So what would it be like to allow yourself to abide in that space? And slightly spreading all the fingers now, letting ourselves feel the space in between all the fingers, making all those spaces a bit wider, all those spaces a bit smaller. And what might it be like to feel all those spaces just as much as you were experiencing the space in between your thumb and pointer finger? And even how the space between your fingers is part of the same space that your palm is holding. Part of the same space as the space just beyond each fingertip. Your hand enveloped in 3D space. And even the space inside your hand is part of the wholeness of all this space around the hand. And even feel the space that your fingers, all the way to the fingertips, occupy. And the space that fills your hand, or that your hand fills. And how the feeling of space is there in that experience of hand. We can simply settle into that experience of space. And what is it? What is it that settles when you simply settle into space? How does it settle? How do we help ourselves not try and force and squeeze and make something happen? Let's even just go back to our hands, simply settling to the support of the lap beneath. Maybe notice that some tension might have crept into the hands as we were feeling the space. Now, with this kind of simply settle, There's a kind of tangibility. There's even a direction in a way. So feeling more into the subtleties of the experience, simply settling our hands to our lap. And is there a difference if we're thinking hands settle down to lap, or if we feel there is laid down reality, mutual flow, way of nature, as actually both directions, and we settle into that way of nature? And with that settling of the hands in that mutual flow way of nature, again spreading the fingers, feeling in between all the fingers, the spaces all in between, surrounding each finger to the fingertip. Part of that space held by the palm of the hand, the whole hand enveloped by space. The whole hand taking up the space it takes up. And simply settling directly into the wholeness of that space. And that's it. What more could we do with space? The not doing, abiding in it just as it is. If you'd like, you can feel that wholeness of space not only filling and wrapping around your hands and fingers. That filling and wrapping around the whole of your body. The edges of the room in every direction. And even as far out as we might like. It's one whole unfolding space. That we're always a part of no matter what. And part of this whole space is two fairly small spaces. Which are the spaces inside your nose, inside your two nostrils. This passageway between the space around your body and the space inside your body. And let the flow of the air and the gentle brush of the sensations of that flow in and out to help you feel that space inside your nose, its shape, its 3D volume for each nostril. And as we continue to let ourselves feel more subtly, may like to just remind the forehead that it can stay relaxed. Feel the space between your eyes. And let it feel wide. And simply settle directly into the space in your nose. And let yourself abide there. abide here. And as we abide in that space as it is, we're not having to block anything out. Even the experience of that space is not distinct apart from the experience of the breath flowing in, flowing out. And so subtly we can begin to simply settle into the flow itself of air flowing in, air flowing out. The finest sensations of flow there at the nose, a flow of change. The flow of nature, that nature is a flow. And what would it be like to not concentrate, but to simply settle right in that flow? To bask in it, bathe in it, for the flow of nature to do its thing, and for us to abide in that experience as it is. And what is it to abide in something that's ever changing? What is it to simply settle in flows within flows without end? Now, for a few moments here, dropping it all, dropping everything, not settling into anything, not practicing anything, not doing anything, just for a few moments. Maybe even that experience helps to highlight how, yeah, as we are exploring this simply settle in various kind of stepwise aspects of our experience, we're limiting it. We are corralling our experience to some particular kinds of arising and not others. That can easily set up another kind of trying in our practice. But maybe we begin to notice that even a little bit. You're welcome here to lie back down again. Just send that signal as viscerally and as immediately as we can to our system that this is not about trying. And let the body receive the support from the earth, since it already is. And from your own sense now of what it might mean to settle, to simply settle, to settle directly into whatever is arising. What is arising in your experience? And what might it be like to simply settle directly into it without altering it in any way? And what might it be like to let yourself abide in that arising as it is arising? And then to simply settle into whatever is now arising. And this completes today's exploration, today's appreciation of what these words, simply subtle, can evoke, can mean, how that experiential sense of it might be accessible. And ever deepening for all of us. You're welcome just to keep lying wherever you are around the world. Or if you're transitioning with me and to move toes and fingers, feet and hands, maybe give yourself a nice stretch. And it's so good to see y'all. Great to see you, David. Miss, I now know how to say your name. Thank you. Annette, hi, and welcome back. Or you might be a new Annette. I don't know. I can't recognize that icon. Firefly. Oh, thanks. Really appreciate you offering this practice. Checked out the teacher's version you recommended last time and loved it too. So glad. So very glad. She has many other readings and she just has such it's a real gift to be able to hear the words of the masters that she reads. Because I think if they were just, words on a piece of paper, it would be even that much, farther away. I put, so her name is Salmonary JSR. I put her link there in the comments. David, thanks so much. This was wonderful. Annette, new here. Thank you. All right. Thought your flowers looked a little bit new, but there's another Annette. So great. Firefly, absolutely, and hope you continue offering these appreciations, explorations. Yeah, thanks for saying that. I think especially with something like Dzogchen that's so even protected and needs to be respected in terms of the teaching, and I certainly don't want to infringe on their teaching and claim that I have any knowledge of how they would interpret it. And at the same time, I just feel like there's something here for all of us. There's a wisdom here that is for all of us at whatever level we are relating to it. And I love your soothing and calm voice. Oh, thanks. Thank you. Emily, I feel that consistently practicing with this group is gradually helping my overworked nervous system to learn that it's safe to settle little by little and simply be. Yes. Yeah. You know, as someone, and we've talked about this, Emily, before, but as someone who worked with chronic illness, you know, it's just the body continually feels the alarm system. Something's wrong. And then there's so many layers of emotion and having to navigate life and grieve what we can't do. There's just so much. And for many years, I actually wrote about this in one of my Substack articles, because for many years I kind of knew I should meditate. And sometimes I would feel a little bit better when I meditated, but it was hard to move closer to all of that. Hard to, you know, feel embodied when the body feels so full of distressing signals. And it's been a journey of the last 17, 15 years, last 10 years with Master Wanshil Park and Tai Chi to, you know, kind of piece together for me the practice that does send that signal to my nervous system most fully. That yes, we use some techniques. You all know I use some techniques of like the feeling the space between things. And yet it doesn't rely on techniques. It has that sense of there's just the way of nature, and you get to learn how to settle into it. And along the way, discover the many, many subtle ways that we still have pockets of tension. We're still trying. We're still manipulating, trying to control something. That's all part of the discovery. Firefly says, I'm sure it's intimidating, but you're doing a great job. And tuning and turning more people into the community onto these practices. Oh, thank you. Yeah. Appreciate that. David, these are all so fresh and new to me. I'm all for learning like this. Yeah. Yeah, today I was a little more somber. I'm not sure why. But I think that's, you know, it's just the joy of getting to explore and discover something like this. Annette says, yes, simply be, David. My alarm has been a bit too loud today and needed to be calmed like this. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I have experienced what it's like to live with a alarm bell going off in one system. Yes, I can relate to that journey, like you say. Thank you for sharing your lived experience. Yeah. I can can help shorten some of the. I think we all have to learn. We all have to find what it is that works for us, N of one. And my goodness, if I can help people feel like there's more of a repertoire beyond some of the more mainstream mindfulness and some of the more esoteric non-dual practices, that there's something that's not about trying, but also tangible and immediate and practical. Emma, I think this might be your first time here. Welcome, Emma Hurst. Thank you so much. And that, yes, my mind tries to take control with this calming practice and connectedness. I can let go. Yeah. Oh, I see, I missed a but. My mind tries to take control, but with this calming practice and connectedness, I can let go. And I do feel like that's part of us all practicing together. I see Andrew. I think I saw Vagabond Nemo. And it is just, it's special when we can practice here together. Come back and back. Alex, your voice immediately calms the mind. Aspire to have that soothing affect on others one day. Well, I'll just say, well, you guys know me. I don't take praise very well. So first of all, thank you. Thank you. And also I'll share that I'm glad to hear my voice is soothing. I used to have such a pet peeve. Oh my goodness. Maybe this is part of my sensitivity to trying. And this is partly why I became a student of Master Park, because whatever he does, he doesn't, try and put on any airs. But oh my goodness, those kinds of breathy, like, welcome to, I can't even do it, and relax, and feel your heart. And I would just be like, definitely was more on the hyper-rational, don't be too touchy-feely with me kind of thing. And like those kinds of voices were just kind of send me over the edge. This is especially, hi Stephen, I see you back. This is especially like 17 years ago, when this was began more in like 2000, even 2003, 2005 a bit. It was a gradual introduction for me, but I had a lot of resistance when I started, and what certainly wasn't mainstream, more like it is today. So yes, thank you. I'm glad my voice both feels authentic to me and can feel soothing rather than trying to be soothing. Marta, hey, in case I didn't see you before. And welcome to, it's like we have several new people here as well. And if you haven't said hi in the chat, just know that you're welcome here. And we'll be joining back together. Jaren, I think that you might have come back from before. Anyway, it's great to get to know you all a bit and share this exploration time together. And I believe I'll be back on Wednesday. So till then, take care all. Take care. Bye. See ya.